Hello, and welcome to this step-by-step tutorial on how to clean your tuba. There are many ways to clean a brass instrument, and I'm thrilled you've chosen this video as your departure point. During the next few minutes, I will walk you through safe and effective cleaning methods you can use at home between professional cleanings. I hope that these instructions will be helpful and assist in providing you with the foundation to maintain your equipment for years to come. Since I started band in middle school, I've always been interested in learning about the mechanics of the tuba. Not only the musical, but the actual mechanics. Much to the dismay of my band director, I was that kid. I would bring the horn home, practice for 10 minutes, and spend an hour taking everything apart and putting it back together. It wasn't long before I noticed how grimy the insides would get after just a few months of playing. Not long after, I realized the implications of playing on a dirty and poorly maintained instrument. We have all experienced sticky valves or slides that require excessive force to manipulate. Although annoying, we have also developed coping mechanisms for these challenges. What changed my approach to instrument maintenance was not entirely these issues, but rather the psychological inhibitors, such as wondering if a valve would catch mid-phrase, or worse, changing my performance approach not for any musical reasons, but to stay ahead of possible mechanical complications. The fear that my instrument would somehow sabotage my performance was uncomfortable, intrusive, and detrimental to my performance psyche. My ongoing joke is that I make enough mistakes without the tuba's assistance. In other words, the horn mustn't negatively contribute to the already challenging task of performance. The collage you're seeing comprises pictures I've taken over the years following these horn cleaning sessions. The earliest picture is from 2012 of a Mino Weston 5450 Thor, and the latest is from just a few months ago of a Yamaha YCB 826S Yamayork, which is also the instrument I'll be cleaning today. One picture per cleaning session. It's hard to believe how many of these I've done. It reminds me of the quote by Matthew Kelly. Most people overestimate what they can do in a day and underestimate what they can do in a month. We overestimate what we can do in a year and underestimate what we can accomplish in a decade. I've gotten in the habit of posting a post-cleaning picture on social media, and sad as it may be, these are often the pictures that garner the most likes. Additionally, at least one person always asks for a tutorial video. Well, here it is. I tried to make it as concise as possible while including important information, step-by-step instructions, and helpful tips. The cleaning routine I'm about to walk you through has evolved over the years, mainly due to the invaluable guidance of my friend and trusted instrument repair person, Bill Korzik, pictured on the top left of the collage. I can't say enough great things about Bill and his work. In fact, I still drive back to New Haven, Connecticut every 2 years so he can deep clean my instruments. My cleaning routine is akin to brushing and flossing. Although necessary, it is not a replacement for having your teeth examined and cleaned by a professional. I clean each of my 2 tubas twice a year and have them professionally cleaned every 2 years. And I'm happy to share that by following this schedule and routine that I have consistently received high marks from Bill. As we develop musically, we must also nurture our curiosity and seek knowledge about the various other aspects of the craft, be it history, theory, performance, recording strategies, maintenance, repair, career management, or whatever else is needed to be as competitive as possible in this most challenging job market. Having the necessary skills to maintain your instrument should be the rule and not the exception, for everything we perform is, first and foremost, reliant on the proper function of our equipment. There are countless ways to clean your instruments. I am not claiming that this is the only or best way, but this method was developed with the guidance of an instrument repair person I hold in the highest regard. The products I use in this video work very well, but I'm also aware of the thousands of other products available. Whatever products you decide to use, make sure you do your research. Some brands are better than others, and some work best on specific instruments. Try something. If you don't like it, change it. At the end of the day, brand and marketing aside, the product should work for your instrument, and your instrument should work for you. All right, let's begin. For this cleaning routine, you will need the following items: several large towels, rags and microfiber cloths, solvent, mild soap, rubbing alcohol or acetone, cleaning snake, long wire brush, cleaning rods of various sizes, a drill, cheesecloth, scissors, silver polish, Simichrome polish, and your preferred oils and greases. Even though I'm in a carpeted room, I like to place the tuba on a large towel, creating a sort of workbench. To the extent possible, I like to place everything on the towel, so I stay as organized as possible, lessening the risk of losing or damaging something. As you are well aware, tubas are expensive. Move slowly and be present. Avoid distractions. As you do this, try to take note of dents and scratches that may require professional attention. If your springs, corks, valve guides, or pads need to be replaced, and if there are any unusual buildup of oils or greases, as this may be an excellent indicator to switch products. I like to think of having two work planes, the front and the back of the tuba. To minimize unnecessary handling of the instrument, do as much as you can on one plane before moving to the other. I may sound slightly paranoid, but the adage, if it can go wrong, it will go wrong, seems especially true during these moments of excessive handling. I start by removing the front-facing valve assembly, valves and springs, and then the back valve caps once I turn the instrument around. Be extra careful when removing the back valve caps, as these can easily fall and dent your bell. If you are happy with the quietness of your valves and instrument feel, as I am, keep the entire valve assembly intact. Avoid switching any part of one valve with another. Additionally, avoid flipping over the spring during reassembly, as this may introduce new and unwanted sounds. While here, go ahead and remove the tuning slides. If you think you may forget how to reassemble your instrument, take a picture. Go ahead and remove anything else that is unique to your own instrument, such as stop rod assembly, strings, pencil holder, etc. When finished, it's time to head outside. I aim to clean my instruments during the times of the year when I can do this outside with a garden hose. This is more efficient due to the pressurized water and safer because of the ample space, though it is possible to do this in a bathtub or a shower. Before placing a towel on the ground, check for any rocks that may dent your instrument from underneath the towel as you move it around. The first thing I'll do is prepare my cleaning rod with cheesecloth. When folded, the cheesecloth should not be much wider than the diameter of the tuning slide or tuning slide receiver you're cleaning. I speak from experience when I say that it can get stuck, no, really stuck, if you're overzealous in your approach. Be prepared to use cleaning rods of different sizes to reach different receivers. The aim is to prevent the cleaning rod from coming into contact with the inner walls of the receiver, as this will surely scratch, or worse, gouge the metal, affecting the smooth operation of the slides. Spray an appropriate amount of solvent on the cheesecloth and swab each tuning slide receiver. The cheesecloth should be evenly damp but not oversaturated or dripping. We use the solvent to break down oils and greases and to loosen whatever may be stuck to the metal, facilitating its later removal with the wire brush. You can see here that the cloth is a darker color, likely from the slide grease as well as small metal particles, a product of natural wear from slide movement and valve compression. These particles are abrasive, and if left in the horn for too long, they will eventually lap the instrument, much in the same way as a lapping compound, lessening overall compression. A green residue is indicative of lime and scale buildup. The solvent won't do much to remove any significant buildup of lime and scale, often observed as a hard green or white chalky buildup mainly made up of calcium and magnesium left behind after the water from the saliva evaporates. Although not shown here, you can dilute a product such as CLR in water and quickly dip your slides before continuing the process. I am deliberately refraining from giving dilution ratios and dip time since many factors, such as the age, overall quality of the instruments, and amount of calcification will affect these numbers. When in doubt, take your instrument to a professional. Next, use the hose to wet the instrument evenly. Use a gentle soap to remove any oil and debris from the exterior and, later, the interior of the tuba. Generously apply the soap to the outside of the instrument and use a wet rag to wash it. This rag does not need to be a microfiber cloth, but it should nevertheless be soft enough not to scratch the plating. Take your time and ensure that you get even those hard to reach areas, as the silver polish will be more effective if it comes in direct contact with the silver plating without any oily buffer. While watching the video, you may notice that I use my left hand to feel the metal while washing the horn. Although hard to describe, you can feel the difference between a section that has yet to be cleaned and a clean one. Be extra careful when handling your instrument during this step, as the soap can cause the tuba to slip out of your hands. I always try to use both hands when moving the horn, especially during the washing phase. Once thoroughly washed, use the hose to rinse the instrument. Use copious amounts of water. Without meaning to skip too far ahead, the soap and solvent must be removed before we can apply the silver polish. There will be other opportunities to do this, but it is easier to rinse as you go since the bubbles make it easy to see the soap. If you wait too long, the bubbles disappear and the soap dries on the instrument. Once thoroughly rinsed, we will shift our focus to the inside of the tuba. I'll prepare the long cleaning snake by applying gentle soap to the bristles. I then spray water through the instrument's lead pipe. You can use a regular hose without a nozzle, although the added pressure produced by the nozzle is helpful. Once I've sprayed water through the lead pipe, I run the snake through it in a forward and backward motion to scrub the inner walls. Once entirely through the lead pipe, for most instruments, the snake will emerge inside your first valve. If your instrument has a small tuning slide between the lead pipe and the first valve, remove the snake and continue to run it so it completes the loop and ends inside the first valve casing. Use your finger to guide the snake through each valve via the connective tubing. These small tubes are an excellent place for gunk to accumulate. Once through the lead pipe and all 4 valves, gently pull the cleaning snake back out. After you remove the cleaning snake, go ahead and rinse the lead pipe with lots of water. Rinse the instrument once more to avoid being left with water spots. It's important that the tuba stays wet the entire time. When preparing the drill, attach the long wire brush to it as you would a traditional drill bit. Some wire brushes have a hanging loop on the opposite side of the bristles. If this is the case, use pliers to remove this segment so it can fit into the drill. Apply a generous amount of soap to the bristles and insert it carefully into each tuning slide receiver. You can slowly power on the drill as you enter the slide, but it's important to wait until the brush is completely inserted before fully powering on to avoid losing all your soap. A word of caution. Keep a firm grip on the drill. If the bristles catch, the drill may begin to spin. As with the cleaning rod, only the bristles should contact the inside of the slide. Be attentive and ensure that neither the tip of the wire brush nor the handle portion strike the inner slide. Older wire brushes such as this one may become bent over time. By holding it near the base, you can maintain better control, preventing possible damages from occurring. In a similar manner, use the drill and wire brush combo to clean each valve casing. If needed, carefully reposition the instrument to facilitate reaching each tuning slide receiver. Rinse and apply more soap as needed. Don't forget the bell. If you haven't already done so, flip the instrument over and use the rag and gentle soap to clean the bell of any dirt or grease. Before we can apply the silver polish, we must first thoroughly rinse the horn of any residue left over from either the soap or solvent. Take a few minutes to ensure that you have a truly clean surface before moving on to the next step. If there's one product I recommend among the ones I'm using, it would have to be the Wright Silver Cream Polish. Not only does it work exceptionally well, but it also rinses completely off the instrument without the need for additional scrubbing. Application is also very straightforward. Simply moisten the provided sponge, apply a quarter size amount of the polish cream to it, and evenly rub it on the instrument's surface. Depending on how tarnished your instrument is, you may need to use more pressure. Once we've coated the entire instrument with silver polish, we will set it aside and shift our attention to the tuning slides. These next steps will be nearly identical to those we took with the instrument's body. Step 1. Use the solvent to swab the inside of each tuning slide. Step 2. Use the cleaning snake with a little bit of the gentle soap to get around the bent or crook of each slide, as this is where gunk accumulates. Step 3. Use the soapy rag to remove any dirt from the exterior of the slide. Although not shown here, you can use a product called Brasso, B-R-A-S-S-O, to polish the brass section of the tuning slide. This will remove any discoloration and give this section a brand new patina. This is not something I regularly do since I am not bothered by the naturally aged brass appearance of the tuning slide tubes. Step 4. Apply the silver cream polish to the tuning slides. The final step before we head back inside is to rinse the instrument. This is your last opportunity to rinse the tuba thoroughly. Take your time and run water on the exterior of the horn, in essence washing off the silver polish, and through each and every valve and tube. Once you've rinsed the tuba, you will likely notice some residual water inside the innermost tubes of the instrument. Carefully rotate the horn several times to allow the water to escape from the bell if rotated clockwise, or the other tubes if rotated counterclockwise. You will want to ensure that the inside of the instrument is mostly dry, so the newly applied oils and greases can remain as unaltered as possible. Too much moisture will affect the surface tension of the metal, causing the lubricants to slide off the surface or dilute beyond the point where they are most effective. Now that we've completed washing the instrument, it is time to dry, lubricate, and reassemble it. As I've alluded to before, it is best to dry the instrument while still wet. You want to use a soft and absorbent towel to dry the water from the instrument. Avoid air drying at all costs, as this will leave you with a dull, quasi-satin surface with lots of unsightly water spots and streaks. I like to begin by first drying the slides, as their smaller sizes will cause them to air dry more quickly than the instrument's body. You may have noticed that the cork fell off the water key while I was drying the main tuning slide. Though this was a minimal addition to today's cleaning routine, it is worth mentioning that unforeseen things will often occur. Sometimes they're minor, and other times they can be beyond our ability to resolve on the spot. I once thought using sandpaper to gently round out a very sharp tuning slide receiver was a good idea. This first valve slide receiver was so sharp that it regularly scraped some skin off my knuckle. What could go wrong, I thought. After all, I had done enough of these to know good ideas from bad ones. I had inadvertently created hundreds of tiny inward-facing metal splinters, too small to see but large enough to prevent the tuning slide from fitting the receiver. To make matters worse, I had an important performance the following evening. Luckily, I was able to schedule a rush repair job, and a local professional was able to resolve my self-inflicted issue. All this to say that it is wise to clean your instrument when you have some downtime, and to always stay within your comfort level. After we've dried the tuning slides, we will proceed to dry the instrument with a large, soft, and absorbent towel. Use the towel to get the bulk of the water off the instrument. Once the instrument is mostly dry, we will shift to using a microfiber cloth, as this will leave us with a beautifully polished finish. After a few seconds of drying the instrument with this blue beach towel, I decided I wasn't happy with how it looked and switched to a different one. Although we will do most of the finishing work with the microfiber cloth, you should begin seeing a nice polished look emerge. If the towel you use leaves streaks or an unrefined luster, switch to a different one. At 20 times the speed, the drying process looks easy and, dare I say, even enjoyable. The reality is that it takes a few minutes. You've spent much time and effort getting to this point, so what's a few extra minutes? Take your time and strive to get all the water off the instrument. Yes, even from those tight crevices between the valves and inner tubes. Left undried, the water will act as a magnet, attracting small particles and quickly becoming visibly dirty. Don't worry about getting everything right away. As we continue with the assembly process, we can always take a step back and dry spots previously unseen. As you can see from the video, once you've dried the larger areas of the instrument using the towel, switch to a more manageably sized microfiber cloth. The microfiber cloth will make reaching those hard to reach spots easier and bring the treated areas to their final polished state. Even after following these steps, you may still need help polishing some tarnished or oxidized areas. The Simichrome polishing paste is a professional grade polish that will surely take care of even the most stubborn spots. It is advisable to use a Simichrome as a spot treatment or for small areas, and not for the entire instrument, as it can be laborious to remove from the metal. Apply a small amount of the polishing paste to the desired area or onto a cloth and polish. Once the tarnish has been completely removed, wipe off the excess and buff to a brilliant finish with a secondary clean and soft cloth. After drying the instrument's exterior, we will again set up the cleaning rod with cheesecloth and swab the slide receivers and valve casings. As you move your instrument around, you will likely see wet or unpolished spots. Take a moment to dry these areas with the microfiber cloth. Remember that air-dried spots will appear dull when contrasted against the hand-dried sections. The drier the interior surfaces are, the better the lubricants will adhere to them. Switch to a new piece of cheesecloth as needed so as not to use an overly damp one to dry the inner tubes. Once we've swabbed most of the interior moisture, the air will take care of the rest. Since my cheesecloth came out clean, I will proceed to clean the valves. If you notice that the cheesecloth is still coming out with an abundance of residue, be it grease or metal particulates, you can swab the tubes with a clean cheesecloth and some acetone. Repeat this step as many times as needed to achieve the desired cleanliness. There are two primary methods of cleaning your valves: a dry approach, which I'll be demonstrating here, and a wet one. The quality of the valve pads or felts is a deciding factor as to which method I will use, although one can always choose to remove the valve stem and pads and wash the valves regardless of the quality of the felts. Whichever cleaning method you decide to use, it is critical, yes, critical, that the valve pads stay dry. Although synthetic pads are more impervious to swelling from moisture, if wet, most pads will either puff up or lose their shape and compress. Valve pads serve two purposes. First, they absorb the impact and lessen the noise caused by the metal of the finger button striking against the metal of the top valve cap. Secondly, these pads determine the vertical valve alignment on the upward and downward valve strokes. Manufacturers have specific tolerances they recommend for optimum alignment. Without going too deeply into the musician's psychology, it is noteworthy that a perfectly factory-aligned instrument may not be the ideal setup for all players, as some may prefer the feel of a slightly misaligned instrument. This is one example where being an active observer of your instrument can prove beneficial. Knowing how things are, whether they're brand new, used, old, etc., allows you, the performer, to make informed decisions about servicing or modifying your instrument. Whereas the valve pads align the valves vertically, the valve guide, as the name implies, guides the valves downward and also limits the amount of side-to-side rotation that can occur. I generally replace the valve pads every 6 to 8 months and the valve guides every year, though this is not a hard set rule. Since replacing either of these during today's cleaning is unnecessary, I will strive to keep them dry. I will use a cloth with acetone to clean the entire valve, including the bottom of the piston, valve channels, and top and bottom valve caps free from oil and debris. If desired, a mouthpiece brush, snake, or larger wire brush can be used to facilitate cleaning. For the wet method, rinse the valves under running water and wash them with the gentle soap and a brush. Vented valves tend to collect debris and water inside the venting channel. Once you've thoroughly cleaned the valves, blow a fast burst of air into the vent hole to push anything out through the bottom. Next, we will clean the tuning slides. First, I will use a cloth with acetone to wipe any remaining grease from the brass portion of the tuning slides. Once the exterior of each tuning slide has been properly wiped, I will use the cleaning rod with a new piece of cheesecloth to dry the interior. As we approach reassembly time, I need to fix the falling cork from my main tuning slide water key. I use a Dremel tool to remove any glue left on the cork and prepare the surface for applying the new adhesive. I then use acetone to clean the cork receiver. Next, I apply a small amount of contact cement to the cork and the receiver. Before joining the metal and the cork materials, I allow the contact cement to dry slightly until glossy. At this point, I gently insert the cork into the cork receiver and allow the spring tension of the water key to settle it into place. This bond will take a few hours before it is fully cured, though it will not impact the remaining assembly of the instrument. Here we are. After just over an hour since beginning, it is time to put everything back together. As mentioned, use whatever lubricants you're most familiar with. Over the years, I've settled on oils and greases that allow me 3 different slide operational levels. Level 1, slides that are seldom adjusted and do not need to move quickly. For me, these are the main, second, downward facing third, and the downward facing fourth tuning slides. For this level, I use a product called Dow Corning High Vacuum Grease, which is an excellent, clean, and long-lasting machine lubricant. Level 2, slides that could be manipulated while performing, but usually aren't. These slides are also frequently used to empty water from the instrument. For me, these are the upward-facing third and fifth tuning slides. For this level, I use Hetman MIG Musical Instrument Grease Lubricant number 10. This grease is available in either a jar or a syringe applicator, though I find using the syringe to be easier and a cleaner experience overall. Level 3, slides that need to move with minimal effort. For me, these are the first and upward-facing fourth tuning slides. For this level, I use the Hetman MIG Musical Instrument Grease Lubricant number 10 mixed with the Hetman Light Slide Lubricant number 4 tuning slide oil. I use a heavier mix, meaning more of the number 10 than the number 4 for the fourth tuning slide. This mix lets me set the slide without the risk of it moving independently. I use a lighter mix for the first slide, meaning that I dilute the Hetman number 10 with a higher amount of the lighter Hetman number 4. Over the years, I've noticed that most people, myself included, want their first tuning slide to move like a trombone slide. To that, I say, be patient. Over time, dependent on your instrument's quality, your slides will naturally lap themselves to a near perfect fit. Unless absolutely necessary, I tend to discourage people from taking shortcuts and having their slides professionally lapped, as removing just a little too much material can lead to a loss of compression or other not easily reversible damages. It's typical for slides to be a little difficult to manipulate immediately after applying lubricants. If played on regularly, this should only last for a couple of days before everything gets worked in and evenly distributed. Be sure to wipe off excess lubricants that are pushed out as you fully insert the tuning slide into the receiver. Use your finger to remove the first layer, an acetone cloth to wipe off the residual, and the polishing microfiber cloth to finish it. After all the slides are lubricated and reinserted into the horn, we will reassemble the valves. Start with the bottom valve caps. These valve caps are often interchangeable, while some instruments, especially handmade ones, can have an assigned cap for each valve. If I am satisfied with how my instrument is playing, I will keep everything intact. That said, I also know people who can play the most beautiful lines on the garden hose. That is not me. I like to know that I've done everything I could, from score study, listening, and quality practice time on the instrument to having the tuba set up to best suit my immediate needs. I've even gone as far as experimenting with clocking my mouthpiece, where you rotate the mouthpiece to identify the most resonant position, 12, 3, 6, or 9 o'clock. With so many distinguished performers willing to put stock into equipment enhancers such as sound bridges, weighted screws, valve caps, sound colors, tape, etc., it is only logical to assume that switching the position of things within your instrument, such as caps, slide orientation, braces, spring, etc., will have, at the very least, a comparable effect. I briefly spoke about the musician's psychology when discussing valve alignment. Whether something is factual or entirely fabricated has little to no bearing on someone's mindset. If it feels better, it is better. In a career field oversaturated with talent, any advantage, however small, can add up to a winning difference. With this in mind, keep your priorities straight. You are, first and foremost, a musician. No amount of instrument tinkering will close the gap between an underprepared tubist and a distinguished musician. Now, back to the valves. Before screwing on the back and top valve caps, add a few drops of a higher viscosity oil, such as Hetman bearing and linkage lubricant number 14, to the threads of each of the valves. Doing so will ensure that your valve caps don't get stuck. Once the back caps are in place, lay the instrument on the ground with the valves facing up and drop in the springs, ensuring they are straight down the middle and not leaning against the inner wall, as this can lead to noisy valves. Add your preferred valve oil, in my case, Yamaha synthetic light oil, and insert each piston into its designated valve casing. To the extent possible, avoid rotating the pistons inside the casing, as this will cause small perpendicular scratches that will eventually affect your valve's overall smoothness and action. Next, we will apply oil to the instrument's exterior components. I first unscrew my 5th rotor cap and wipe off any oil and debris from the surface. As with the valve caps, I then apply a few drops of the Hetman bearing and linkage lubricant number 14 to the cap's thread. There was a time when I played on a rotary valve instrument, a B&S PT605 B-flat tuba. On that horn, the back of the rotors was nicely exposed, making their removal relatively easy. This is not the case for either the Walter Inertial 6/4 York copy or this Yamaha YCB 826S Yama York, where adjacent tubes tightly surround the rotor casing. Because of this, I never remove or clean the rotor myself. Instead, I have it professionally done every 2 years. This is also the frequency with which I have the rotor bumpers replaced and the rotor's alignment checked. If needed, I will apply a dozen or so drops of the Hetman rotor lubricant number 12 to whichever slide leads directly into the rotor's casing, in my case, the main tuning slide. I also use the Hetman ball joint lubricant number 15 on the ball joint located on the rotor, and the Hetman bearing and linkage lubricant number 14 on all remaining joints, screws, moving sections, and exterior springs. As we near the end, do a once-over with the microfiber polishing cloth and wipe off any remaining residue, tarnish, water spots, and fingerprints. The final step is to reinstall any auxiliary items removed at the start of the cleaning. For this step, I will install a new string on my first slide. I've tried several strings, but have since settled on the same string used for French horn rotors, as it is both strong and minimalistic. I'll tie it onto my anchor point, a small hole drilled on the first slide brace, and measure a length that will allow for maximum slide extension without letting the slide fall. I then use a lighter to melt the tip of the synthetic string to prevent fraying. After one more round of wiping, this concludes my home cleaning process. In all, without the high-speed edits, this took approximately 1 hour and 45 minutes to complete. As you saw, the horn was relatively clean from the start, so depending on the starting condition of your instruments, you may need to plan a little more time. It is my hope that this video will be a valuable resource in your growth and continued pursuit of knowledge. Thank you.